Like, oh my God, you have to read this book.
Is like it says lesbian necromancers.
Probably 4.3759.
NA or new adult is like, think of like college or like just graduated.
So it's sort of like signing the document at the end of downloading it.
Is this one of the ones that's been also made into a Netflix?
It might have
think
been.
you just saw the covers of Netflix something.
I've got some Netflix watching to do, I think.
Hi, book friends. I'm Genevieve.
And I'm her mom, Diana.
And this is our July monthly wrap-up,
where we share all the books we read this month.
And our thoughts and opinions about them. So grab your favorite beverage.
And join us. I listened to a total of about 75 hours, a couple of sci-fis, a couple of historical fiction, historical nonfiction, one fantasy, and one fiction. Yeah, just all over the place this month.
So this month I read 7 books, and I primarily do physical book and audio. My average rating was a 3.7 stars. A 1 star is I'm upset it took up time. A 2 star, I'm pretty bummed that I paid for it, or really glad I got it out from the library. 3 star, I would probably recommend to the right person, to the right audience. I would say that a 3 star is a good book. 4 stars when we're getting into like a really good book, would definitely recommend, probably more to a certain audience. 5 star is amazing. I would recommend to anybody.
Can't shut up about it.
I want other people to read it so we can talk about it. How about you? How do you judge your books?
Mostly probably on how I feel about them, how often I tend to reference them.
When we go through these, I'll give star ratings, but it sounds like you're probably going to be more
going to be like
feelings.
My first book that I read this month is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. This was a fiction, mystery,
thriller.
Is it a thriller?
It's a thriller. Mystery, yeah.
The book is actually sort of narrated first person. It is about a famous artist named Alicia, who we find out in the beginning of the book that she is married to a famous photographer, Gabriel, and for some reason one day she just shoots him, murders him, kills him for no apparent reason, and then stops talking. So she becomes notorious for the murder, and she is put into an asylum of some kind for the criminals. And there is a therapist, that is the narrator, who seeks her out to see if he can get her to talk and to find out what trauma took her to this point where she had murdered her husband. Throughout the book, you're questioning, had she really murdered him? Because when you're in her thoughts or her perspective, she is madly in love with her husband. Her husband is very caring and cognizant. And then there's a perspective by the narrator, criminal psychotherapist Theo. There is, bits of his background story. Theo's having his own existential crisis as well. It was one of those books where as soon as I found out what was going on, I wanted to pick it up and read it again. The nice thing about the book is they have the luxury of bouncing around different times, but they don't really tell you that's right. What they're doing. Yeah.
So
you think you're reading lineally, and you're not. I highly recommend it. I don't know if this was made into a show or a movie. It should be. This should be made into a movie.
I wonder if it would be hard to make into a movie, though, too, because it's so internal monologue. Sometimes internal monologue is hard to make into a movie.
Yeah, that's true.
So the first book I read this month was one I was really excited to get into. It was originally supposed to be a trilogy, but the author is now making it a quartet, but the 4th one isn't written yet. So it's Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. It is about, they always say it's necromancer lesbians, but honestly, like the lesbian part is not really a big part of the story. They are necromancers. So the general plot is it's a sci-fi world where there are various planets. I believe there's 9 planets, and each planet has a different necromantic specialty. I'm assuming necromantic is a word. Like one planet is the law, and so they're the necromancers of law.
What is necromancer?
You don't know what a necromancer?
Another term.
No, it's not a book term. It's like people that control the dead. A necromancer.
Oh, no, I've never heard of that. What do you mean controls the dead?
Bring the dead back to life. I don't know. Necromancers are magical people that control dead things. things.
Never heard of that. That's
Really?
definitely a sci-fi thing.
I mean, it's a magical fantasy sci-fi thing, yeah. So each planet is a different type of necromancy. So Gideon is on the 9th planet, and the 9th planet is known for guarding the Locked Tomb, which is the name of the series. The name of the series is the Locked Tomb series. So that's what their job is. The royalty from every planet and their cavalier, which is essentially their bodyguard, is going to the first planet to go through a trial to basically help the emperor, which is like the top being of everything.
Okay.
Gideon is the bodyguard. She is not the royalty. Now, I highly recommend this book. However, I did some research beforehand. I just did a Google summary of some terms because this is not a telly book. You have to read things. Like, you feel like you don't know what's going on. They throw terms out. And so there were
Dune was like
oh,
that.
was that?
Yeah.
So there were some terms I wanted to know ahead of time. And then at the beginning, they also have a list of all of the characters and the houses. And people had warned that that's what made it confusing. So I actually made a little cheat sheet that, because what they do is they have names like Abigail Pent, Niberius Turn, and they refer to them by either their first name or their last name. And so I kept getting confused as to who was who. Oh. So this was really helpful. So I highly recommend, because this was small enough that I could just I use it as a bookmark basically, and then I kept track of who they were talking about if I ever got confused. Yeah, somebody on the internet recommended that. But they do have like a glossary at the end and all these cohort files, but I would not recommend reading those because that does have some spoilers in it if you read that ahead of time. Really enjoyed it. It's basically, it's a mystery. Gideon is part of this mystery, except she doesn't really care about it, so she doesn't really go out of her way to solve it. She just gets kind of drugged through it, and you are in Gideon's perspective.
Okay.
So she's not like Sherlock sleuthing things. She's just kind of like, oh God, fine, we'll do this. You know, like that's basically what she's like. She's really funny. She's very witty. There's a lot of really good lines in here. Really good character building.
And what's your score?
Oh, good. Hold on. So I gave Gideon the Ninth 5 stars. It was my top 5-star read for the month.
Wow.
So I think I originally gave it like 4.75, but I just kept thinking about it, and so I went back and bumped it up because I was like, why did I not give this 5 stars? So.
The second book I read was one that my sister just recommended so highly to me. It's Paris Undercover by Matthew Goodman. It's almost 4 books in one, maybe.
Oh, wow.
This is a historical nonfiction book about 2 women, Etta and Kate, who were in occupied France during World War II, Nazi-occupied France. Etta was actually an American that ended up there. Kate was actually an English woman who had married a Parisian. And the 2 women met up and became very, very good friends. Kate was a little more outgoing. Etta was very womanly for the era, followed the rules and stuff. But Kate brought her into this concept of rescuing British airmen and getting them out of the country before the Nazis could get to them. And they were Red Cross workers, so they were allowed to go into the hospitals, and they got to use the advantage of them being a couple of little old women, and the Nazis pretty much just overlooked them. Now, this book is based or is entangled with a book called Paris Underground that was written first, and it was written by the perspective of Etta, who had been captured by the Nazis, but being an American, there was some negotiation. Right before the United States got involved in World War II, they went around and gathered up foreigners that they felt they could negotiate to get American prisoners out with. Okay. They did that, and Etta ended up being swapped for another quite infamous spy German woman prisoner. When she came back, she had lost everything, had lost her family, had no money, and she was an elderly woman. And she got entangled with a publisher who said, I want to get your story down. And then he embellished it more and more and more. And Etta, trying to make a living by making a bestseller book ended up endangering Kate. So the first part of the book is the story about the women getting together and the war breaking out and the occupation, a lot of good history that I had not known about. Then the next part of the book is about the publishing of Paris Underground. The third part of the book breaks Paris Underground up and proves all the inflations and misinformation of this woman's memoir. The last part of the story was what happened to Kate. And amazingly, she survived, but this woman, I had no idea. The Russian liberators were almost as horrific as the German prisoners were.
I read nonfiction that reads like fiction. Would you say that?
No, I did not get the impression that it read. At first, it started out as it read like fiction, which I liked. Maybe that was the problem, because then it broke out and it became almost listening to a thesis of why this stuff wasn't true and how it was proved incorrect.
So it started out sounding like a fictional story and then turned very analytical.
Yeah, it did. Exactly. Turned very analytical, and then it went back to reality.
Are you glad you read it?
I am. I learned a lot that I didn't know after all these years, and even, with, my husband's interest.
If you had known what it was going to be about, would you read it?
Yeah. I think I'm not sorry that I read it. Just heart-wrenching. I can't believe how cruel man can be to man.
So the next book that I read in July was Shield of Sparrows by Daphne Perry. In our previous video, which if you haven't seen, I will link it. This is the one where I didn't end up really liking it. It's a romantasy. Really quick summary of the plot. It's a magical world, Calandra, and we have this king that lives in one area of Calandra, and he's getting ready to marry off his second daughter to the prince of another kingdom, and the Shield of Sparrows is this edict that has been going on forever in this world where the prince and princess of two different kingdoms have to marry each other because that's how they keep peace. And that's what the Shield of Sparrows is. And I think they call the princess the Sparrow, and they all sign their name on the Shield of Sparrows. So it's like this warring, factioning.
Real life.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But the prince shows up and he decides he doesn't want the princess that he was supposed to marry, he wants the other one. And so the main character is actually the older princess. She's kind of the forgotten one. The father doesn't think she's really capable. He's been training the other princess to be a spy. This overlooked daughter has to then travel through this kingdom to go to her new home country. Now, in this world, there are monsters that make the world dangerous. And there is this particular monster that's coming. It's a migratory monster. And so they're trying to get to safety before this migratory monster comes, because apparently this migratory monster just you have to hide underground for months and months. That's the only way to survive. It was very telly, not showy, which is not my favorite, which, do you know what that means? What I mean by that?
Fill me in.
So so Gideon the Ninth, they don't tell you what these terms mean. You have to figure it out from context. They just use them and you figure it out from context. This is I live in this world and this is what my father does. And this is where, this is what I do all day.
And this all out for
exactly.
You.
Which is fine. It makes it for a quick read. This read very YA, but it is not a YA book. Oh. You don't really know how old the characters are. I think at one point I had to write down, she says her age, and then I did some math to figure out how old her sister was. Oh. But her sister acts like a 16-year-old and she acts like an 18-year-old, but they're supposed to be in their 20s. Another YouTuber that read this book, she summed it up really good, where every character in the book, they're only described by their hair color and their skin color. You have no idea how old they are. So there's one character that I'm picturing, and then all of a sudden you find out she's somebody's mom, and I wasn't picturing her as a mother at all. Nuts. Literally everybody in this book is lying all the time, and to the point where you just know that they're lying. The one twist I called so early, but it's an obvious one. And honestly, even everybody kept saying you won't figure out the second twist. I kind of did. And even though it was the last line of the book is the second twist, and I still don't think that I'm going to read the second one, even though it left with like a cliffhanger.
That was the first of a series?
Yes, I think it's going to be a trilogy. So it's the first of a trilogy. This one just came out in May of this year. The other thing that really bothered me about it, so I'm currently a science teacher, previously a scientist, and in this world, they are battling these monsters while they're traveling, and they keep talking about an infection, but an infection is caused by microorganisms and it spreads. Infecting means you are spreading the microorganisms, and that is not what it is in this book, but they kept calling it an infection. And that, I couldn't get over that. I can suspend my disbelief for a lot of things, but that one really, I'm like, this is not what an infection does. Like I kept writing that in books, but I get it. Like I'm sure your regular average person would probably be able to overlook that totally fine, but I couldn't. Overall, I gave this 2 stars.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What about for pretty though? It's
for pretty, it is 5 stars for pretty. It's got
down.
Yeah, even like that. And I don't know. I'm gonna hold on to it until the next one comes out. Sometimes authors get better, but this is not this author's first book.
Oh, okay.
So I think this is the writing style. So a lot of people really like this book, and maybe I will give it to somebody else who can enjoy it. So it wasn't for me. That's what I got.
Okay. The next book that I read this month is Mudbound, and I can't for the life of me remember who or how this one came to my attention. It's by Hillary Jordan. Mudbound is Mississippi 1940s era book, and listening to it, I did enjoy it a lot because it's narrated, each chapter is narrated by a character. And I really like that because I think it shows the complexity of life, where you're only getting one viewpoint of a character in a book, then it's hard to understand what's going on with the other characters around them sometimes, but she really delved into it. The first character that we meet is Laura, and she is a city-raised woman who ends up marrying this guy who wants to go buy this farm in the Mississippi Delta. She actually names the farm Mudbound because when they arrive, it's been raining and it's not her cup of tea, but she hangs in there. And you hear about, the misery of her life living in this backwoods and nobody's around. And then you hear from the viewpoint of her husband, Henry, and he is just in awe. He has this land and he's going to make it grow. And he talks about how fulfilling life is when you bring forth plants that's sustenance for your family. He also brings along his father, Pappy, who is just the most racist, horrible human being. He just has nothing good to say to Laura. He's just an awful, awful man. There's Jamie, the brother-in-law, who shows up after World War. He's coming back from the war.
Wait, brother-in-law
of Henry and Laura. He's Laura's brother-in-law, okay. Henry's brother.
Okay.
And he's just getting back from the war. He is suffering from
PTSD.
Yeah. There's a sharecropper, Hap, a black man who is living on the property, and his wife Florence, who ends up working for Laura, taking care of her kids, and Pap, who is horrible to her. And they have a son, Ronsel, who is also coming back from the war. Okay. And Ronsel and Jamie bump into each other and become friends.
Oh, nice. Okay.
No.
Oh.
They are living in the Jim Crow South. And Ronsel's not even allowed to be in the truck.
Got it.
He has to sit in the back if he's going to get a ride from Jamie. This is a key point to the story. You feel like Laura and Henry are not particularly prejudiced for their time frame.
Right.
But there are thoughts every now and then that Laura has about Florence that make you say,
Got it. So I've read multi-POV books where you see one part of the story and then you jump to a different character, and it's almost like there's 2 different stories and eventually they converge. But then there's also the multi-POV where you're seeing the same scene from different characters. Mm-hmm. Which one is that?
You know how they all connect and combined. It's more like the second one you said, where, you understand the scene. Actually, there is a nice little twist where you're confused about which character did this one final act, you're like, oh yeah, and then it happens like 3 times.
Yeah. Could you see yourself rereading this?
It was again sad, depressing. A lot about the prejudice in the South at that time. A lot of racist words being thrown around, that listening to it, I'm glad I had headphones on.
Yeah, I've done that. When I listened to Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, I was in the car and I was like, oh crap, turn it down. Like, I want people to hear this.
Yeah. It's a good look at the South at a period of time that was the Jim Crow era, which is, it's very racist, and it's about people of both colors living in that area, living together. It was eye-opening. I learned a lot. Historical novel, but a downer. And this is the kind of book that after I read it, I gotta go find something that's easier on my head.
It seems like the first, because you're going chronologically, it seems like the first 3 books you read were downers.
Yeah, this one sort of had a happy ending, but it sort of didn't.
Okay. So the next book that I read in July was Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This is the first in what's known as the Southern Reach series, This is one of the books where I knew not to buy all of them because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. So general plot is you have 4 female scientists. They're entering what is known as Area X. It's a government-owned piece of land that has been, weird things have been happening on it, and so they keep sending scientists in there to study it. I believe they're the 11th group that is entering it, and the narrator, they're all unnamed. They are known by their titles. There's an anthropologist, a surveyor, a psychologist, and then the narrator is the biologist. Because all of the weird things are happening on the island, you don't know what's really happening and what's not. It's supposed to be like a sci-fi horror. It was not horror. It didn't creep me out. It wasn't my genre of horror, I would say. Like you don't know what's going on. And as we have previously established, I do not like that in books. Apparently as the series goes on, it gets more like, you still are never explicitly told what's happening, but it does get more heavy-handed with what's happening. Well, okay. You and I disagree on that. But I just don't, it was like, I think I fell asleep listening to it at one point.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't even care enough to go back and listen to the chunk that I missed, because it's so surrealist that it didn't matter. You know what I mean? It does have a dual timeline where you go back into her past and you find out more about why she's doing this. Those were probably the more interesting parts of the book to me, because it was something I could follow. Yeah, exactly. It's a movie. My husband remembered the movie more. I've seen the movie, but I kept asking him if I was like, did this happen in the movie? And he was like, no, I don't think so. And he ended up like just Googling all the differences. If somebody had a dream about the movie, that's what this book is. But if you are into really weird sci-fi, where I've actually seen reviews where people are like, I don't know what I just read, but I loved it. Like if that's your jam, then go for it. It was very dreamlike. So I rated this 2 stars as well. So it just wasn't for me. Probably not going to continue. I'm not mad that I bought it though. I think it was relatively cheap, and I'm glad I tried it.
My next book was The Kitchen House. Probably, although another
depressing historical fiction.
It did have a happier resolution to it.
Okay.
It was very heartbreaking in many, many ways. This was recommended to me by a new friend. Hi, Diane. I think you're watching. It's by Kathleen Grissom. The Kitchen House takes place in pre-Civil War Virginia, and part of it actually happens in Williamsburg, which was kind of neat because we just went there this spring to celebrate my dad's birthday. The main character is Lavinia, an Irish-born immigrant who was coming over to the United States with her parents and her brother. Unfortunately, her parents die on the trip here, and I believe they must have been in poverty, as most of the Irish were. So the captain of the ship, in order to pay off the debt that the parents owed for the passage, enslaves Lavinia. And he sticks her in the kitchen house, which is where slaves, some of them are living in the kitchen house. It's by far as slavery is concerned, a better place to be than the ones that are out in the field. So he's got this big plantation. He's got a very cruel foreman. He has another slave, Belle, who he treats very kindly and buys her things. She's still a slave, but as the reader, you find out that Belle is his daughter. Her mother has died, but he was actually in love with her mother, even though it was, nothing that could ever at that time be exposed. And so when he remarries his white wife, she sees his love for Belle and assumes that Belle is his mistress. And so she really mistreats Belle. It's about life in this kitchen. When Lavinia first shows up, she's too young to be of any value as a slave, but she's brought up and raised and taught how to, serve and everything. She's in this very weird area. She wasn't really a slave. They always knew she wasn't always going to be a slave. And yet it was the slaves that raised her. She was treated like one in some aspects. It's about her life growing up, and then when she gets to the point where she had outgrown it or something. I don't know. But yeah, once she became a full-fledged white woman, it was kind of hard to explain why she was functioning as a slave and sleeping in the same house with the slaves when that was not something that you would do. It's just basically her life and the kinds of dichotomies that occurred.
You said it was a comparison. It was like her life compared to Belle's life. And how?
Yes. That was a big part of the story. Belle's father, the captain, or her slave owner, kept telling her he was going to free her and send her free papers, but he would sail off and do a route and leave his farm to the foreman, and the foreman was just a brutal man. And his wife was so angry at Belle that when he did send the papers to her, she hid them from her. It was definitely the struggles that all of these people had in their lives. I would highly recommend this book. It was a good insight into the true lives of a slave at that time period. Again, depressing.
Would you recommend it to Nancy?
Yes, I would. If she hasn't already read it, I'd be surprised if she hasn't already read it. But yes, it was definitely, I would recommend this to anybody who likes historical fiction or who is interested in that time period.
So the next book I read was Ghostsmith by Nikki Powell Preto. This is the second in a duology, so it finished up a series. I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about this particular one. I'll tell you about the plot. The first one is called Bonesmith. This takes place in a world where there is magic. It's almost like thinking of from the earth, like the magic comes from the ground. And once you have been found to have magical abilities, they're very specific. The main character in the first book, it's primarily told from Wren is the main character, like the bird, W-R-E-N, Wren. Her power is controlling bone. So she is what you would call a necromancer. I still can't believe you haven't heard that term. She's a bonesmith. The kingdom is ruled by the goldsmiths because they can control gold. However, just to give you an example, one of the other main characters in the book, he's a goldsmith prince, but he calls himself the spare of the spare. So he's really the third son, but he's the only one in the family that actually has magical abilities. So having magical abilities doesn't necessarily make you more important, but his family has a lot of money because they come from a line of goldsmiths. The other interesting aspect of this world is when somebody dies in this world, they don't leave. They turn to ghosts. So the job of the bonesmith is to work with the reaper to help the spirit be released from the body and then be able to move on. That doesn't happen naturally. They need to somebody needs to do that. So she's trying to become a Valkyr, which is like the person that's going to protect the reaper so that they can properly do their job without getting attacked. Some messed up things happen and Wren is not able to accomplish what she's supposed to, and she gets banished to the wall. And the wall is this area that is protecting the majority of the kingdom from this undead land that's just like full of very angry spirits. The prince ends up there, the spare of the spare prince. The prince's name is Leo, so Leo is the goldsmith, and Leo gets kidnapped Ren is like, oh, this is my chance to show that I'm worthwhile. So she's like, I'm going to go after the prince. And the person that has kidnapped the prince is what's known as an ironsmith because he can control iron. Ironsmiths are supposed to have been long forgotten. Their magic is like all of them are supposed to have died off. The duology basically is from Ren, Leo, who is the goldsmith, and Julian, who is the ironsmith, their point of view. It's a found family. All of the adults in this book are terrible human beings and you don't like any of them. And they're children, but they don't read like children. But it's about them trying to bring back stability and tell everybody about what's actually happening in this world because all of the adults are just like terrible power hungry people that are doing everything very wrong. The first one doesn't leave with like a cliffhanger, but you definitely need to read the second one. Like it's not a complete story. Okay. And so both of them together were a good complete story.
You enjoyed it?
Mm-hmm, yeah, I did. The other thing that definitely kept it interesting was the first book is primarily Ren's point of view. All the chapters are told from her point of view, but then you do get like right when it kind of started to drag, all of a sudden it switched to Leo's point of view. Okay. And I was like, oh, that's exciting. And then I think we did get maybe 1 or 2 chapters from Julian's point of view in the first book. This one, much more
of Julian.
Yeah, which I always like because, you know, they get separated at one point. So you're in like 2 different plots and then you're like, oh, and then all of a sudden you're switching to somebody else. It's like, but wait, I have to know what's happening. You know, I gave the series as a whole, I would say like a 4 stars. So I was glad I read it. I definitely think, as you might have noticed, like I'm getting out of YA. Like it's just, it has too much of that like whiny teen.
You've grown up.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with reading YA. I can tell it's a fine line and I'm starting to, again, like I said, 4 stars. Like I would recommend this to the right person. I'm not going to sell it. You know, I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm really glad that I own it. But I could see referencing it to talk about in the future. So
yeah. So the next book that I listened to was Tom Lake, which was one of the ones that she chose for my August read.
Yeah, which you notice this is in the July wrap-up, so she couldn't wait, apparently.
It was available, and I knew I was going to have to read it. It was a very nice, cozy listen, and the version that I got was narrated by the wonderful Miss Meryl Streep.
Oh, that's the book that you were telling me.
Who has a lovely, very recognizable voice.
Can you tell everyone who wrote Tom Lake?
Okay, so Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. It's a story that is about a woman. It does go back and forth in time. It's a woman and her 3 daughters and her husband are all living on a Lake Michigan cherry farm. It starts out with the daughters are adults in the beginning, and they all have to handpick the cherries.
Okay.
While they're all up in the cherry trees picking and filling up their baskets, they tell each other stories about their lives. The story starts out with Laura watching and helping a school play cast for our town. And it's funny because our town was quite popular when I was growing up. It was a play that a lot of high schools put on. Laura decided she could play the main character better than anything she saw, so she went ahead and...
This one, Laura's younger?
Yes. Okay. She's in high school.
Okay.
She ends up playing it quite well and really grabbing onto it. So another key feature in this book is the play Our Town. Laura is so good at it that a recruiter sees her, and she ends up skyrocketing to becoming an actor in this movie. But the movie has all kinds of stumbling blocks and doesn't get released, and they've put a lot of money into it, and they can't juggle this new star. So they convince her to go to Tom Lake in Michigan to do summer theater. By now, she's in her 20s, and she is living with this theater group. And one of them, Duke, has the it factor. They all know it, including Duke. And one of the daughters, when she's very little, is just fascinated by Duke. So there was a lot of back and forth in time frame about actors and that kind of lifestyle that they were living, and then being on this beautiful, picturesque cherry farm in Michigan with 3 beautiful daughters, and how these daughters kept saying, Mom, why didn't you continue to pursue this acting career?
Right, yeah.
And she was just happy with the way her life turned out, walked away from it willingly. It was back and forth in the timeline. Duke is a main character that shows up all the way through, and there are some little surprises in the end, but just a nice cozy read. I would say if I were to sit down and read it, the physical book, I don't know that I would have enjoyed it as much, because Meryl Streep is an actor.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was very easy for her to step into this role.
Right.
And she is the right kind of actor
for the story.
For the story.
It sounds like it was written very descriptively.
Yes, yes. There was a lot of beautiful prose throughout the book.
So remember how I told you I don't normally do 2 books at once?
Yes.
So when I read Ghostsmith, the audio was not available. You know, I went like a day waiting for it to show up, and then finally this was free on Audible, and I knew it was leaving at the beginning of August. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just start listening to this book. So I was actually reading 2 books at once at the same time. I'm not saying it was because of the circumstances, but I did totally fine with it. Anyway, Paladin's Strength is the next book that I read by T. Kingfisher, who is one of my new favorite authors this year. She's like an auto buy for me. At this point, I've read like 5 of her things already, and will be reading more in the future. This is the second book 2 in the Saint of Steel series. It's what I would call an episodic series, meaning you could pick this one up and not have read the first one. Each book is about a different paladin. So this is Paladin Strength. Do you know what a paladin is?
No.
I had never heard of it until I saw this. So you're not the only one. It's a knight. It's another term for a knight. I think it's a specific type of knight.
A knigget?
No. But I will say there is an underlining story that I think is going to at least go through the first couple books. They do a good like rehash of it in here so that if you haven't read the first book, you would be okay. But there is a plot line that I think is going to go through a lot of the books. It's a magical world. It feels very like almost like medieval Dungeons and Dragons-y, where there's these like, it's normal to see creatures that are like animal like walking around, and they are anthropomorphized, but the main characters are people. And the paladins, they were I forget the name of their god. Their god has died, and so these are basically their knights that are now berserkers, which means their god would have them fight for him, and they would like go all crazy, and they could like be super strong and super fast, but they knew to not kill innocent people. Like their god controlled them when they were in this state, but he has died. And so you have these knights that basically feel lost. Oh yeah. They don't have a purpose is kind of how they feel. And this all happens before the story even begins. So each book is about a different one of the surviving paladins where their god has died. And so this is the second one. And so far the 2 books of the series that I've read, some chapters are told from the knight's point of view, and then some chapters are told from the love interest point of view. These are definitely romance. I would say this is probably like a 2.5 to 3 on the spice scale. There is some open door scenes, and then there is some also like fade to black scenes. But T. Kingfisher does it really well, like very tactfully. This is about Istvan, is the paladin that we're hearing about, and he's very tall and strong. He is the least self-deprecating of all of the knights. And then the female in this book is Clara. The book starts out, and Clara is basically like offered to Istvan as payment for somebody in this village did a dumb thing, and Istvan had to like tried really hard not to kill him and had to kill him because he was being attacked. And basically they're like, take Clara as an apology. That's the short. And so they end up together. And you know Clara has a secret because she talks about it like, oh, please not now, like, you know, like that kind of thing. And I was so mad at myself that I did not figure out. It is so obvious what the secret is. And once I figured it out, I was like, seriously, why did I not see that coming? Which I'm not going to tell you guys. You'll know exactly what it is when you get there. Like, I feel I'm so good at like figuring that stuff out because I read so much. And this one was like so in your face. And I was like, how did I not see that? Anyway, so the story follows them. They're journeying across the land. They're Istvan is journeying across the land to continue part of a mystery that started in the first book. Clara is journeying across the land to find her sisters. And when I say sisters, I mean nun sisters, not not biological sisters. And they end up going in the same direction. And so Istvan, being a paladin, she's a nun. He has to help a nun. He's a paladin, you know. And so he, in the quest of helping her find her nun sisters, they also continue the mystery that has started in the first book. I liked this book. I would say I like this even better than the first one. The first one is called Paladin's Grace. The female main character is named Grace in that one. Yeah. I think I like this one better because the plot was much more engaging and interesting. There is, I would say, for a good 2/3 of the book, there's a lot of that. I like her. Does she know that I like her? But I can't like him, but I want to so there's a lot of that, and that gets kind of old. It's like, okay, I've already heard this. That's why I knocked it down to 4.75 instead of a full 5 stars. But I mean, that's your pretty typical romance. Yeah. And you know why they're saying that. They have very good reasons to be saying, but it's like, okay, I get it. You don't need to say it every time. Really good cast of characters. Even the side characters in her books are really solid in T. Kingfisher's books. And then the ending was very abrupt, but it was still satisfying. I think they'll show up in future books, and we'll get I'm sure we'll get a glimpse of them in future books. Good. So.
The next book I read was one that I picked up from her, and it's sort of unusual for me, but it's Martha Wells' All Systems Red, and it's part of the Murderbot series. It's a novella, as you can tell, quite small. I keep trying to tell my normal bookshare friends how fun this book was. Yeah. Especially now, I think it's interesting because everyone's like, oh, AI, it's going to take over, and it's freaking out and everything. In this sci-fi series, the main character, the Murderbot, is an AI being.
He's what they call a sec unit.
Yeah, a security unit. So they don't really call him a Murderbot. No. They call him a sec unit because the idea is there's space exploration going on. Some company owns the planet and they can send scientists or other people out to survey these planets for resources or for
just research in general.
Research in general. And in order for you to do this, the company provides you with so many sec units, and
you have to get one.
Yeah. This particular sec unit that starts out in this book has been on several other missions before, and his job is to make sure that no murderous fauna or flora or life forms are going to attack the research team.
You haven't said the most important part about him.
So he was able to hack his governor unit, so he is bored a lot of the time.
He's gone rogue. He doesn't have to listen to the corporation.
Right. He's gone rogue, but he has decided in his boredom to watch videos. And as he's watching, he's sort of learning about human behavior. He continues to function and act like his sec unit that he is, so that no one knows about his governor. The neat thing about the book is that you are getting his perspective. Yeah. It's written by this AI being's perspective about human beings and the way we act.
Right, yeah.
And the way we act towards an AI unit.
Which even in this first one, so I read the third one, which is Rogue Protocol. She read the first 2 this month. Yeah. I read the third one. So the people, much like in real society, different people have different opinions about how to interact with robots.
Right.
And the people he's working for in this book seem to come from a very pacifist planet where they don't even want the sec unit, and they treat him like a human.
When this book starts out, the people are more historian scientists. Their preservation group is what they call them.
Exactly. So what did you think of the second one? The second one is Artificial Condition.
Yeah, by the second one, he has been given autonomy. In the second one, he wants to get to a planet, but he needs a work permit. So he signs up with a couple of young scientists that were on to something. And so they're going, and because the intellectual property that was taken from them had nothing to do with their assignment. Yeah. So they wanted to go get their intellectual property back.
The second one is where he meets Art, right?
Art is
the spaceship that helps him.
Yes, yes. So he gets help from another being.
Yeah. The thing that happened, because I've now read the fourth one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And in each, you see Murderbot go through adolescence, essentially.
Yeah.
So in this one, he has a lot of anxiety. He doesn't like to look them in the eye.
Yeah.
He wants his face shield down because he doesn't know how to interact. In the second one, he's trying to get more comfortable with that.
They've done work on him to make him appear more human.
Well, but then so in the second one, his growth comes from his interactions with art, because art is art's a spaceship, but it's like an AI spaceship with its own like personality. So it's how he's and this other robot that you talk about, it's how he interacts with other robots, because it's almost like he's no longer categorized as a robot, but he's also not categorized as a human. And so he's trying to find his place. In the third one's not as funny. It has more of like a heartfelt story to it. And there's another robot called Mickey, and Mickey is a robot that is treated very much like another human for Mickey's group. Pet would almost be like, I would say, a step above a pet, like a talking pet.
Okay.
And so that's a whole other type of interaction and dynamic. Again, he gets roped into this. He doesn't want to be part of this mission, but it's helping him get to a planet that he needs to get information. And so you see him grow again, because it's almost like he's annoyed at how like infantilized Mickey is, but also Mickey is very strong in other ways in their dynamic and relationship with their humans. And so it's just another growth step for Murderbot.
Highly recommend these, even if you're not a big sci-fi.
Yeah.
I did this in a day.
Yeah, quick plot. Good characters.
Yeah, quick plot, easy to follow. This is one series that I am definitely going to follow through with.
The last book that we read this month was one that we both read, Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales by Heather Fawcett. This is book 3 in the Emily Wilde series. We can't say a whole lot about this particular plot. It reads as cozy, but it doesn't actually follow the definition of cozy. At least I don't feel it does, because cozy means it's not high stakes. So it's an alternative reality where fairies are real and known in the world, and the main character, Emily Wilde, is what is known as a dryadologist, which means she went to university to study fairies, and she is now a professor.
She's like the world-renowned
female dryadologist. Yeah, and
she's very scholarly.
She's very scholarly, but she is also socially awkward. She's very driven and wants to, does very well at her job. She is going out to learn more about fairies.
Different fairies.
Yeah, and in this world, the fairies are what I would consider like when I grew up learning about like Irish fairy tales, where they were like changelings and they would capture people and they were evil. That's what the fairies in this world are.
I found it interesting too, because the fairies that she talks about are fairy types,
like subclasses and stuff.
Yeah, that exist. Not that fairies themselves exist, but the idea of them exists all throughout the world. It's very believable.
Yeah, it is. Well, and it's written in epistolary form. You like how I threw that word out there. Which means that you are reading her research journals. What was that? Oh, epistolary. So you're reading her research journals, and one of my favorite things about it is the footnotes. So she'll talk about something and then she'll write like an academic footnote that is, which doesn't, it just adds to
you'd
the
think
character.
It would sound dry, and I'm listening to it. So she's talking along and then it'd be like footnote. But it's not. It adds to the story and it keeps her in character.
In the first book, she's going to a fictional place in what seems like it's like an Icelandic
What's the
character.
name of the first one?
Oh, the name of the first book is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Yeah. And she is followed by what you would call her rival dryadologist, Wendell. So Emily is very socially awkward. Wendell is the opposite. Everybody loves him.
He's like lazy. He doesn't really do the work.
Yeah, she's convinced
but for some reason.
That he, forges all of his work and has his research assistants do it. And they have a very interesting dynamic.
She also has her dog.
Oh, yes.
Who is
Shadow.
Who is a key character throughout
the whole. And then at some point, Wendell also has a cat, which is another. So if you like pets in your stories, they have, and he has a very cat-like dynamic.
Yes.
So I want to know what you thought of this one.
It wasn't my favorite of the series, I will say. I was pretty happy with the wrap-up of the second one. I do like the writing. It's pretty. Yeah, the overall story, some of the things that she did in there didn't really make sense to me. I kind of wish that she had elaborated a little bit more about things, and some of the characters did such an about face so quickly that kind of bothered me. But
did you feel like there was one point where I felt like I was getting to the end, to the climax, but I was only like halfway through the book? Did you feel like that was happening?
Yeah, I think that was...
It's like, what's the rest of this book going to be about?
Right.
I would agree. You could read the first one and stop. The first one ends with not a cliffhanger. There's like a hint, like there could be more. I think the second one did that too, even. Like the second one leaves it with a nice wrapped up ending, but potential for another one. And this one, like, again, I liked it. It almost felt unnecessary.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But what I will say, though, I think to the same point, I kept going, it seemed like it was repetitive. But then when I realized, because I always just call them the Emily Wilde books, I never, they're like these big, long big, long titles. And once I realized it's the compendium of lost tales and the focus of this one is Irish fairy tales. Then I was like, okay, I kind of see why it had almost like that cyclical, repetitive feel, but I do not regret reading it. I do not regret buying it. Yeah, so they read very cozy, but as I was saying, like, cozy always implies that you know everything's going to be okay, and you deep down know that, but there are some very like scary, she gets into scary situations where, in every book that happens too. So I think I gave this probably a high 4, like the 4.25, but the series as a whole, I would say really 4.5 to 5.
I just enjoyed the writing and the story. And
of all the books you read in the month of July, what was your favorite?
I would say The Silent Patient really threw me. Okay. How about you?
Gideon the Ninth was easily 5 stars.
So that wraps up our reading for July.
Let us know what you read in July, or if you read any of the books that we read, and let us know what you thought about them in the comments.
Right now, I'm in the process of reading Kristen Hanna's Firefly Lane, which was one of my TBRs for this month.
And I'm getting ready to start The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, which is our buddy read. So make sure you like and subscribe to find out how our buddy read goes or about our August wrap-up.
Thanks for joining. Did I say that right?
I think so. Sounds like it.
Alex Michaelides.
Hold on. I wrote it down because it bothered me so much. Yeah. Okay, I wasn't sitting up.
Oh, right. Sorry. There's a sharecropper.
Blooper. Let's just start over.
Yeah. It's an alternate, anyway.
Bring it in.
So, yeah.
No, it's not a trilogy anymore. It was a trilogy. He just wrote another one. Ophelia is the love of, so it's the... Anyway, okay. I'm editing that out.
Yes, please do.